All right, good morning, Grant. We are going to start up right away. As I put down in here on the note this morning, it says there, please remember, in fact, let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. All right, so all week I'm going to be subbing for Mr. Gudmested, and that is the reason that class is starting 15 minutes late. I have to see if there's any questions at the beginning of the period. I have to get into his Discord server, and I have to take a screenshot of how many people are there. And that's the reason I just decided that I would start up at 8:15. I'm doing the same thing with the afternoon class. So as it says here, and this is what we're going to do, my guess is we'll be done no later than 10 o'clock this morning, but I guess we'll see as we go on. We're going to go over the LB5 job estimate application from the Chapter 12 homework. And as it says there, the rest of the period will be lab. All right. Tomorrow will be lab for the entire period. Of course, when there's lab, I'm not going to do any taping. This morning, along with your email message, I also attached the Chapter 12 pretest, which I will go over at the end of class today. Again, you don't have to do that, but if you want to, it'll probably help when you take the test later this week. I will go over and build that entire pretest from scratch on Thursday. Again, I'll probably have the GUI created already because that just is a waste of time for you to watch me create a GUI. But I will put all the code in starting at 9:30 a.m. Thursday will be the hands-on test. Again, you will have the test sent out to you by 7 o'clock a.m. or so, but I will not be going over the test itself until 8:15 after I get Mr. G's class started. Friday, again, will be our regular lab day. And finally, as it says right there, the Chapter 12 written test, the Chapter 12 homework. I think there was one problem for homework, and the Chapter 12 labs, and we can go over those again if you need to. They're all due this coming Sunday at midnight. All right, in fact, let's just quickly do that first. On here, this was the homework page. Again, I said you didn't have to do that part 2 thing. I didn't like any of the problems on there. So the flashcards one we already did as a group. You are still supposed to do this. You are still supposed to turn this in. So lab 1 flashcards, you do that one. Lab 2 store inventory, I'm letting you do that one from scratch. In my opinion, this is harder than what we'll do on the test. Now, you may or may not agree after you see the test on Thursday. All right, so number 2, you will do from scratch. Number 3, the bank login we did on Thursday. So if you've got any questions about that, again, you are still supposed to be doing that one, creating that one yourselves. I did it in class on Thursday. Lab 4, the game break we did earlier last week. All right. Lab 5, the job estimate is what I'm about to go over in just a couple minutes. And lab 6, the tile estimate, you're responsible for. So there are 6 lab problems on here. And out of those 6, we either have done or will be doing 4 of them. So the 2, you have to still do all 6 problems, but the only 2 you're doing on your own are the lab 6 tile estimate and the lab 2 store inventory. All right, so let's take a quick look at this job estimate. All right. So create a GUI for Harold's Home Services that estimates the cost of various jobs. The base cost of a job is hours times hourly rate plus a $35 trip fee. So for example, if you were going to Harold's garage, or if you were going to work for Harold's Home Services and you were going to clean out someone's garage, and that cost, that was $25 an hour, and you estimated it would take you 2 hours, then it would be 2 times 25 or $50 plus a $35 trip fee. So what we're going to do first, and you can see it up on your screen here, is we're going to build the job class. As you can see, the job class has one global constant in it. Anything that Mr. Smith wrote here and wrote double or wrote float on, I'm going to make a decimal. So we will have a constant decimal called trip fee, which is going to be equal to 35M. And again, that's that $35 trip fee. Then we'll have a string for the description, a decimal for the hours to complete, a decimal for the hourly fee, and a decimal for the total fee. All right. And our constructor, you'll notice that out of those 4 variables, we're only passing 3 of them in. The total fee is going to be calculated. All right. You'll notice on this one, we have both a getter and a setter for our description. We have both a getter and a setter for our hours to complete. We have both a getter and a setter for the hourly fee. And there's just a get, not sure why he did it that way, but he did, for the total fee. All right. So as it says here, the constructor should calculate the total fee. The setter for the hours to complete should do basically that fee, and for the hourly fee. So in other words, when we put that stuff down, it really, and it should make sense too. All right. Now, each time the user presses the update button right here, if a job object has not already been created, create one. So in other words, we're going to take the description, the hours to complete. All right, we're going to multiply that by the hourly rate, and then we will add to that $35 trip fee, and that will be $122.50. So looking at the example that they have right here, if I took 25 and multiplied it by 3.5, I think at least that's $87.50. All right, $87.50 plus the $35 trip fee would be $122.50. So that's the entire price. As we're going through this, as always, if something doesn't make sense, or if you think I screwed up on something, because I do, not on purpose, but because I do, please let me know. Again, especially if something doesn't make sense to you. So that said, I have come in here already. I have put in the comments. And I have let me get rid of this. This is the bank login. I have the GUI right here. Now I did change it in that Mr. Smith on his didn't put in here the trip fee. I put it in there, but I put it in as a label. So we've got a fairly simplistic user interface here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 labels over here, 2 labels up here, 3 text boxes, another label, and we've got here, you'll notice these are also labels. All right. I didn't, I had my choice. Really, we could have made those labels, or we could have made those read-only text boxes. It looked like he had them there as labels, so I did the same. I added a clear button where there wasn't one there before. All right. So the first thing that we want to do, and I made this kind of bigger just so I'm sure you could see it, and that is we want to come in here and we want to create this job class. I already mentioned to you what's in there, so we are going to be doing that literally in just a second. All right, so let me get my notes here. Okay. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to right mouse click on the name of the project. I'm going to choose add. And again, I can either choose new item and it comes up with class by default, or I can right mouse click on here and choose add and go down to the bottom, right next to the bottom, second last one, and choose class. It doesn't matter, but I'm going to make the job.cs class right here. There it is. I don't know how I lost the E on job estimate there, but I did. It's no biggie. And I'm going to add the word public onto here as I usually do. It used to be when you created a class like this, it came up with a word internal in here. And it looks as though they've dropped internal and they just have class followed by the name of the class. It's not a real big thing one way or the other. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our constant. You already saw this. So this is a const decimal, and they called it trip underscore fee, and they set it equal to 35. I'll just say 35.00M. All right. So that will be our one constant, because remember, every time, no matter what job we do for Heralds, what we have next is we have to add the trip fee to it. Next, we will have our 4 instance variables. And again, I know I'm sounding redundant, but that said, everything that I'm taking from right there. So I just put in the trip fee. Now I'm going to put in my 4 instance variables. Then I'm going to add my constructor. Then I'm going to add my class methods. All right, just so you see all of that stuff, as we get going here. All right. So again, for our instance variables, we've got private string underscore description, private decimal underscore, and I just called them pretty much what they were, hours to complete. Yeah, put a space in there, and that's why that got goofed up. There we go. Private decimal hourly fee, and private decimal total fee. All right. So again, those are our 4 instance variables. So in other words, for any job that Harold's Home Cleaning Service is going to do, each job will have a description, each job will have an hours to complete, each job will have an hourly fee. Those are it's going to get those values from the 3 text boxes that we're putting in. And from there, we are going to multiply the hours to complete by the hourly fee, and then add to that our trip fee, and that becomes our total fee. All right. So next we need our constructor. Oops. Further. And this will be public job. Please remember, be cognizant of the fact, because you're going to have to create a couple classes. I think there's 2 problems on your test on Thursday. All right. So please remember, when you create the constructor, cannot have a return type, and you have to account for 1 or more up to all of these variables for your instance variables. So again, I'm going to have a string for the description. I'll put it over 3 lines here. A decimal for the hours to complete, and a decimal for the hourly fee. Now, again, looking back at this, okay, you notice that in here, we only have 3. We aren't accounting for the total fee in here. All right, so I've left it out here as well. All right, as soon as I put in my curlies, that error should go away. Nothing new here. Underscore description equals description underscore hours to complete equals hours to complete, and underscore hourly fee equals hourly fee. All right. So that is everything then for our constructor. Oops. So again, so far looking at what we've got here, we have created our constant, we have added our 4 instance variables, and we have added our constructor. Okay, so what's going to be in here next is our gets and sets. Now, I'm going to show you these right now. I am going to do these. But that said, you may think, you kind of cheesed out on these. And what I mean is I didn't do any validation on here. We could have gone in and brought in the validator class and come in, for example, and set up a minimum hours to complete and a maximum hours to complete. We could have set up a minimum hourly fee and a maximum hourly fee. We could have done all that stuff. I didn't. Now, when you are taking your test on Thursday, if you are asked to validate, you should bring in that validator class, all right, that we used from chapter 12 in our Muroc text. If you're not asked to validate, then it's up to you whether or not you do validation, all right? But what I've got left in here for my getters and my setters is going to be very, very small, to be honest with you. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put in my getters and my setters. All right, let me move this up a little. There we go. So the first three especially are really simplistic. So I did public, string, description, get, set. That's the first one. Whoops. Public, decimal, hours to complete. And again, that will be a get, set. Next will be a public, decimal, hourly fee. And again, with a get set. All right, so there's already 3 out of our 4. And again, I'm not going to try to say it again, but I didn't do any validation in here. What that means is we've got 2 choices. Either we have to have no validation in here at all, or we can come in here and we can check to make sure that that isn't empty, and we can make sure that that is numeric. And that's the way that I'm handling it. All right. So let's do the last one, because the last one would be public, decimal, total fee. All right. And that one is set up as just a getter. So we're going to put in here get. And the way that we're going to set this up is pretty much the way you think it would be. We want to return. And what do we want to return? Our hours to complete times our hourly fee. And that whole thing will be multiplied by our trip fee. And that's it. So that is everything for our getters and setters. Now, a natural question to ask would be, okay, I see you've got this return in here, and you're actually doing processing. Isn't the return just supposed to say return total fee? And aren't you supposed to say inside of your set routine, aren't you supposed to put in this formula? And the answer is we could have done it that way. What many object-oriented programmers do when there's just a single line in here like this, all right, is they just put all the logic into their get routine and they don't have a set routine. What this assures is every single time we do a getter, we're going to have the freshest data we can have, because it's going to find the current value of hours to complete. It's going to find the current value of hourly fee. It'll multiply one by the other, and it'll add 35 to it. All right. One thing that you want to be sure of, I'm just going to put this in here. It's going to be a comment. I'm going to get rid of it right away. But I'm going to mention 2 terms. One is state. Oops. One is state, and the other one is what's referred to as stale data. And again, I'm going to get rid of these comments in a minute. One thing you want to always, always, always be assured of when you are working with object-oriented programming is that the state of your object, it's always in a good state. In other words, you don't want to let bad data into it. The reason that that's so important is quite often what's going to happen is when you're working with this, you're going to be possibly either, right now we're entering that data in ourselves. I think you've seen that. All right, that's what we've been doing. However, if we were working with a database, then rather than populating that information that goes inside of here, into here, into here, into here ourselves, we'd be grabbing it from a database, all right, and possibly modifying it and then clicking update and sending it back again to a database. So we always want to make sure that the object is in a consistent state, that it has data that makes sense, that it has data that's of the right type, and that any validation that has to be in there has done. In other words, we don't want any junk to find its way in there, is what I'm saying. All right, so that's state. By putting this in here, as we've done in a return statement, we never get what's referred to as stale data. And what stale data is it's data that's old, for lack of better words. So we're trying to make sure that our data is as, quote, fresh, unquote, as possible. So one last look, because hopefully I won't even have to come back to this. I'm going to do a file save all. I'm going to leave this open. It's like 40 lines. I really, again, don't need any of these as far as I know in here. I probably could get rid of all those, knock it down to under 40 lines. I don't even probably need the using system, but we have our public class job, our one constant, which is a decimal trip fee, 35M. All right. And when we look in here, what do we have? Well, you'll notice in here that right now, I'm looking in here, I've got a description, get set, yep, got them all. All right, and it's telling me right now, this is gray, this is not gray, and this is not gray. Why is that? Because the hours to complete and the hourly fee are being used in our formula that we're using to figure out total fee. If they were not being used in that formula, they'd all be gray, and it's no biggie. But here's our for instance variables. Here's our constructor, where what this again means is when we create a new job object, it needs a description, it needs an hours to complete, and it needs an hourly fee. And once again, we are getting those from, there's our description, there's our hours to complete, there's our hourly fee. All right. And again, as far as our getters and setters, we're just doing a typical get set, get set, get set for description, for hours to complete, and for hourly fee. And for the total fee, we are multiplying that value that's in there for hours to complete by the hourly rate, and we're adding to that the trip fee. So unless there are any questions, I'm going to go on and actually write the GUI code right now. All right. All right, so let's jump into here. And some of this stuff, again, is pretty easy. What do I mean? Well, when we click clear, what do we want to have happen? We're going to do a new job. So we want to clear this and this and this. We also want to clear these four right here, and we can set the focus back there. Pretty much what you think we would do. All right. So for the clear, well, as we always do, we'll call it clear and set focus. And it'll be txt description.text equals double quote, txt. What was the second one in here? It was hours to complete. equals double quote, txt hourly rate dot text equals double quote, LBL. Let's get these. This is LBL description current, LBL hours to complete current, LBL hourly rate current, and LBL total fee current. Okay. So LBL description current dot text equals double quote, LBL hours to complete current dot text equals double quote, LBL hourly rate current dot text equals double quote, and LBL total fee current dot text equals double quote. All right, and to my knowledge at least, that should be everything. Let's move these over, pretty it up a little. All right, that's everything for our clear. We can test that right now, but the only thing that we can actually clear out will be those 3 text boxes, but still, let's do it anyway. So let's do a save all, come in here and I'll just throw some garbage into each one of the text boxes. Click clear. All right, and not sure if my focus is there or not. Thought I put it in there. No, I didn't. So txt description dot focus. Run it one last time to double check. All right, everything appears to be working as of right now. Okay. Well, you know, this clear all these fields, not so much that I have to, but it would be kind of nice just to be sure that when I run the program, okay, whoops, I don't want to run it. When I actually bring up and run the program, okay, I want everything to be clear, and it should be anyway, but I'll come in here and in my load event, I'll do my clear and set focus in there. Again, it's not so much that you have to do that, all right, but we'll do that anyway. All right, so we've got the clear done. We've got our forms load event done. So what's left, as you'd guess here, is the update. All right, so one thing that I should do at the top of the program here that I didn't do, but we'll do it right now, is we'll add that global constant. So const decimal trip fee, and I just called it trip fee without the underscore, 35.00M, and it will be the same trip fee. It doesn't matter that I named it 2 things. And we'll have our 3 global variables. Decimal hours to complete, and that equals 0.00M. Decimal hourly rate equals 0.00M. And finally, decimal total fee equals 0.00M. All right, so that should be at least, I should now have everything I need to do the program. And again, I wrote my own validation routines in here. We could have used the ones from Muroc. If you are asked to validate on the test, it's up to you as to whether you'd rather validate using the validation routines that Muroc gave or use your own. I don't believe on there that if there's any validation that you're told to do it one way or the other. All right, I will check that before class on Wednesday. Okay, when I go over the pretest. Okay, so we've got all that stuff, and we're coming in here. And again, the way that I wrote this, as oftentimes we do, is I use that old keep going variable. Okay, so I first have a decimal in here, which is a result. And for now, I'll just set it equal to 0.00M. That's really redundant because it's set to that by default anyway. All right. But I'm going to come in and say bool, keep going, equals, and we're going to call it validate description. Like I said, I wrote my own routines here, and that should be bool, of course. Okay. So underneath here, let's write our validate description. Now, one thing you should all be able to realize by now, everybody watching this, whether you're live or watching it on tape, is this has to return a bool, a Boolean, a true or false. Why? Because we're stuffing whatever it returns in to keep going. All right. So this will be a private bool, and it's called validate description. And it's pretty simple, as you'd probably guess. So a bool, validate description. And again, you'll notice that as soon as I do this, the error goes away there, but I get another error because I have not returned anything. Okay, so we'll have our bool retval. We'll set it equal to true. We're going to assume that you can validate, that it validates as true. And here we'll return retval. And then in between there, we have to put in our logic right here. All right. So if txt description.text.trim is equal to nothing, well, then we know that that's empty. We don't have any kind of description. And trim, of course, needs two parens because we're calling a routine. All right. So if that's the case, I wrote my own show message box here, and it says cannot have an empty description. We're going to write that show message box in just a second. Cannot have an empty description. That'll be the text. The title will be empty description. All right. And we'll also want to come in here and we will want to say retval equal false. All right, that fixed all that, but we don't have our show message box written yet. So as we oftentimes do, it'll be a private void show message box. It will take in a string for the title, and it'll take in a string for the message. But when I did those backwards, it's the message first, and then it's the title. All right, and this will simply be a message box dot show, and we will have in there what the title, and we will have in there the description. All right, whoops, that should be message. So we will have the we will show the message, and we will show the title. Plus, as we always do, we'll say message box buttons.ok. And this will be an error because there won't be a description, or there won't be a hours to complete or an hourly rate or whatever, or they won't be numeric. All right, so we will put in here message box icon dot error. All right, we should be able to now come in and test this one, but before we do, let's take one last quick look at it. All right, so we're setting keep going equal to validate description. So we're calling that here. We're assuming it's going to be valid. All right, if by some means we leave the description empty, we show a message box and we say it's invalid. So if we come in here and it's empty, we hit this line, then we hit this line, it's true, so we do this, and then we do that. If there is any kind of description, then we go into here, we go here and the test fails, so we just go down to here. So we should be able to test that one right now. Again, it's not complete. The program is far from complete, but let's look at that. If we put nothing in the description and we click update, empty description cannot have an empty description. That's good. All right. You can already see one thing we should do is we should set our focus back to that description. Okay. So let's do that. So we will say txt description dot focus. We don't have to check or empty anything out. It's already empty. All right. So that will handle right now, that will handle validating our description. All right. Now for the hours to complete, I made 3 checks. Okay. And what do I mean? I said it can't be empty. All right. It must be numeric and it must be a value greater than 0. So you could put in some unearthly number in there. You could do that. All right. I mean, it would be stupid to do it, but you could. Maybe you are working for a company and you've got something in there where you've got thousands of hours. That would always be possible. So those are the 3 checks we're going to be making next. So in here, I said if, keep going. And because I typically don't do as good a job as I should, let's come down here and let's write a couple comments in here at least. So validate description not empty. All right. If description not empty, then validate hours to complete. I believe that was the second one we had in here, hours to complete. Okay. All right. So if keep going, now I'm going to say keep going equals validate hours to complete. And again, we're going to get an error there because that hasn't been written yet. All right. Else, all right, well, you already know this, else description was empty, just return. Okay, so return. All right, so put it like this, was not empty, then validate hours to complete. All right, and we're going to do exactly what you think we would do in here. So I'm going to write this one and then we're going to take a break. So let's go down to here. And after our validate description, we will again write a private bool again, and it will be validate hours to complete. All right. And I'm going to steal this because it's got part of our code in here. It's not complete, but it's got part of our code. So we need the ret val, but now we're checking txt hours to complete dot text dot trim. Cannot have an empty hours to complete. And here it'll say empty hours to complete. Now we can also now go in and check that one too to make sure that it runs. So if we do put something in for the description and I click this now, this should fire because there's nothing in there. All right. Empty hours to complete, cannot have an empty hours to complete. So that's good. All right. And again, we don't have to clear out anything because it was empty. All right. Now we could come in again and set the focus like we're doing, but again, we want to set it to txt hours to complete dot focus. All right. So just like we did before, and again, I'm just trying to be a little bit consistent here. Check for empty description. And here it will be check for empty hours to complete. Okay. So if that was the case, we did all this. Okay, so I'm going to put an else in here. And I know that if I got down to this point, there was something into the hours complete. So in other words, hours to complete text box not empty. All right, but now I got to check to make sure that it is numeric. All right. All right. So I came in here, we've got our ret val field, but we also need some kind of a result field. So I'll say bool result, and I'm not going to give it a value. But now we can come in here, hours to complete is not empty, so verify that hours to complete was numeric. All right, so we'll say result equals decimal dot try parse. All right, and what do we want to parse? TXT hours to complete dot text. Where do we want to put the output? Let me move this over so you can see everything on the same line. I'm going to move that back. And sorry, there we go. In our out, that will be put into hours to complete. That was that global variable that we created at the top of the program. All right. So far, we've come in here again, and we have checked to see if by some chance, all right, this thing had something non-numeric in it. So if result is false, non-numeric input was made. So if not result, all right, well, I do want to do one of these show message boxes, and I want to do the same kind of thing I did in here. All right, so cannot have non-numeric hours to complete, and this will again become non-numeric. All right, now I not only want to set the focus, but I want to clear it out because there's garbage in there. So txt hours to complete dot text equals double quote, double quote. All right, so we've got this. So if this, let's see. So we're in this else right here. Okay, so we're going to put another else here. Okay, now we know that something was numeric in there, but whatever we put in there must be greater than 0. All right, not, if it's less than or equal to 0, it doesn't make any sense. So if we get down to this point, was numeric input, verify input greater than or equal to 0. All right. So, again, not really difficult stuff in here, right? Okay. But we could just come in and say if, well, we now have a value inside of here into this hours to complete. There's a value that's in there. So if hours to complete, if that's less than or equal to 0, again, that doesn't make any sense. So we will again come in and do the same kind of stuff that we did in here, but we'll say cannot have negative or 0 for hours to complete. All right. And that I'm just going to say here, out of range hours to complete. So again, we want to clear the value. All right. We want to set the focus and we want to return. Okay. Now, if we get down then to here, this final thing that's in here, everything was cool. So there's really nothing that we have to do in here because ret val is already true. All right. So let me quick do this and then we'll take a break. So we should now be able to check. You've already seen the first one. Whoops. Come on. Save all. There we go. So when we come in here, the first thing that we want to do when we run this, I just want to make sure I didn't break anything here. So, yep, empty description. So we can put in, job, whatever. So if we come in here, empty hours to complete, so that's being handled. If we put in this, non-numeric hours to complete, that's being handled. It cleared it and it set our focus. And if we put in a negative value, in fact, let's just put in 0. Out of range hours to complete cannot have a negative or a 0 for hours to complete, and it cleared that. So as of right now, so if we come in here, we put in 50 and we click update. Nothing happens because we have not yet written the code for our hourly rate. All right, it is 9:01. Let's come back, please, at 9:15, and we'll pick it up there. All right, so far we've come in here and we've validated the description and just checked to see whether or not it was empty. Then we validated the hours to complete and we made 3 validations. First, we validated that it was not empty. Second, we validated that it was numeric. And third, we validated that it was greater than 0. Now, one of the reasons that I wrote it like this was to show you some of the, for lack of better words, let's call it pitfalls of doing this. And what do I mean? I'm going to grab every bit of code I put in here, in between the curly braces. And now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, if the description not empty and the hours to complete greater than or equal to 0, next, validate the hourly rate. So I'm going to come in here and again say, if, keep going, equals validate hourly rate, which hasn't been written yet. So of course it'll give us an error. All right, which is fine. All right, else return. All right, so when we come in there and we do that, validate hourly rate, we'll do it right down here. So public bool validate hourly rate. And I paste all that stuff in. It's the same routine that we just wrote, except now rather than txt hours to complete, we want to change all these to txt hourly rate. All right, so check for empty hourly rate. All right, cannot have empty hourly rate. So again, if we get down to here, hourly rate text box was not empty. Verify that hourly rate was numeric. Hourly, and this again goes into hourly rate. If it was non-numeric, cannot have non-numeric hourly rate. And finally, verify the inputs, so verify that the hourly rate. So if the hourly rate was less than or equal to 0, cannot have negative for the hourly rate, out of range hourly rate. Hourly rate, hopefully I didn't miss any. We'll take a quick look just to be sure. And hourly rate. So hourly rate, hourly rate, hourly rate, rate, hourly rate, hourly rate, hourly rate, hourly rate. I think I've got them all. But the point is this, you notice how much duplicative code there is. When I say duplicative, yeah, it's not exactly the same. We're doing the same operation, but on 2 different fields. So in the past, we've just written our own routine, back on page 213. But then again, we have to bring that code in every single time. Whereas if we put it into a class and we bring it in, we can just bring it in on a program by program basis, which in my opinion, at least, works a heck of a lot nicer. All right. So we've checked everything. Everything's been validated. So finally, with our last validation, so we came up here. Well, let's see. It's giving me what? Validate hourly rate does not exist in the current God, let's see, where did we put that then? Public bool, validate hourly rate. I don't know, did I not spell it the same or something? I don't know. Oops. Yeah, looks okay now. All right, so if keep going, well, we're going to put some code in there in just a minute. We don't need an else return here because we're at the bottom. But if we get down to this point, all 3 text box fields have been validated. So we can create a new jobs or job, I guess, object. All right. And again, by now, at least, hopefully that's making some sense to you. Okay. So what do we want to do? Well, what do we have here? We've got just a result. All right. But what we can do is we can come in here and say, okay, we can say jobs, job, I guess job equals new job. And again, it'll tell us now what it's looking for. It's looking for what? It's looking for a description. Well, that's in txt description.text because we already know now that that's not empty. And it's also looking for what? In hours to complete. So txt hours to complete. And in fact, we don't even need to give it that. We already know what those are because we put that into hours to complete. All right. And finally, we need an hourly rate, which we put into hourly rate. So we now should have all that stuff. So we should be able to come in here and create a new job. All right. Now, we didn't do this before, but what we could be doing right here, what we could have done right here is up at the top of our program where we're creating these global variables, the hours to complete, the hourly rate, etc., all this good stuff. All right. We could have come up here and done this. We could have said list job, and notice it finds it. We could say here jobs equals new list job paren. The advantage of doing something like that is now we could add this to our jobs. All right. So in other words, when we come down to here now, I created a new job object, right? You see that. And we do want to come in here and we want to, let's see, result equals, I don't know if this will work or not, job dot, nope, doesn't like that. So let's see, job dot. Okay, we've got our hours to complete. We've got our hourly fee. All right, I guess this, I don't know if I want to do it like this, but I'm going to do it like this anyway. So our hours to complete times our hourly rate, all right, plus our trip fee. All right. What doesn't it like here? Let's see. It says job does not contain something for hourly rate. Well, let's double check. Oh, we put here hourly fee. Okay, that's fine. I called it hourly rate, and here we call it hourly fee, but again, that's okay. So this will just be hourly fee. All right. So that should have in it that result. All right. Now, one thing I noticed after I wrote this, I really didn't do a very great job. This is about the only place we're even using the class in here. All right, and that isn't real good, but well, let's come in here and do this. So I'm going to say txt, and I'm sorry, it's an LBL, total fee current, LBL, total fee current dot text equals result dot toString, and we'll make that currency. All right, so we've got all that stuff, but we should be able to add this now. We should be able to come in and say jobs dot add, and we should be able to add job to it. So we're adding it to our list. All right. And again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a message box then. Dot show. And I'm going to basically print out everything that we're adding. So I'm going to say description. Job dot description. All right. Plus, and if this makes no sense, just give me a second here, and then hopefully it will in a second. And the next one was hours to complete. And then finally, the hourly fee or rate, whatever we wanted to call it, plus job dot hourly rate. Now, a couple things about this. I'm going to move this over because I want you to be able to see everything. Okay. This hours to complete probably should be a dot to string, and then we can make it currency. All right. And this was hourly fee, which is why it's giving me that error. And again, dot to string. And again, that can be currency. And the hours, that would not be currency. That's the hours that we're using there. So we've got job description. All right, we got description, hours to complete, hourly fee. And then let's go and add the total. All right, so let's see.
When you get done doing this description, could you go back up to that list?
Sure.
Added the jobs list.
Up here, you mean?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I'm trying to fill that right now, so I'm trying to see. Oh, let me leave it up there for a second. So if you need it, you can put it down. You got it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. No problem. Thanks for keeping me on my toes. All right. So that's this. And I don't know if it'll take this, but I'm going to try something here, and that is job dot total fee equals result. And shows you how great I spell, doesn't it? Jeez. All right, so let's see, what doesn't it like here? It says property cannot be assigned to, it's read only. That's what I thought. Well, we're going to see if it has a value in it or not. How's that? So the total fee, and this may come out to 0, so I don't know. Job dot total fee dot toString C. And like I said, that may come out. I may have to go back and change that to result. All right. So what we're doing in here is what we're saying here is, hey, if everything worked, we're trying to create a new job object. We create a new job object by using the name of the class, followed by the name of the instance. And if it would make it easier, we can call it the job. Sometimes people get confused when you've got the same name for the class and for the instance variable, except that the name of the class is uppercase and the name of the instance variable is not. All right. So like I said, I don't know if I'm making this better or worse, but we are coming in here. So again, I can put a comment in here, instantiate new job object. All right. And again, we're going to see if everything works. I'm going to leave this. This may come out to 0, and if it does, then it would be result we'd have to put in there. So let's try it. So file, save all, and let's run it. And even though it's a little redundant, I'm going to verify everything here. So empty job description, clean garage. All right, can't be empty, can't be non-numeric, can't be negative or 0. All right, so we'll just put a 2 in there. Now we get our hourly rate. Okay, and I should have probably changed it. I don't know if they used it, if Mr. Did he say a rate or did he say fee on his? I don't know. He did say rate. All right, so can't be empty, can't be non-numeric, can't be 0 or less. So that's all working. So here's the big reveal. So 25 bucks an hour. So it should be 2 times 25, which is 50 plus 35. So it should be 85. Now, I don't think I filled in these, so we'll have to go back and do all those. All right, but it is coming in here and it's saying description, it's not finding anything. Hours to complete, 0. Hourly fees, 0. And total fee, 85. So it's figuring, oh, no, saying total fee is 35. So it's not grabbing any of that stuff. So we'll have to take a look at it, see if we can figure out why. But before we do that, all right, let me clear this. Now the clear is working, I know that. Probably should have put an exit button in there, but that's okay. All right, so let's first go back and start to address what we know is wrong in here. All right, so all this stuff, the job, hours to complete, etc., none of that's working because it's basically adding all empty stuff. All right, so the job, it should have grabbed that, but it doesn't appear to have. It should have grabbed that, and it doesn't appear to have, and it should have grabbed that. Now, so let's come back and see if we can debug this. So I'm going to come in here and put in a message box dot show, and I'm going to remove this in just a minute, but I'm going to say description is plus description. I guess that's txt description.text. Plus, and we'll say hours is, and that's hours to complete, again, dot to string, and again, that's numeric. All right, and then we'll also put in here the hourly rate, or what do you call hourly fee? And again, plus hourly rate.toString, and that will be currency. All right, so what I want to see is if those values are indeed getting put in here. So file, save all, run this. So again, we said wash windows, $10 an hour, and it'll be 5 hours. All right, 10 and 5, those are being passed. All right, so that's good. I know that. I should have formatted that a little bit, but you get the idea. All right, but nothing is coming in here. Okay. So again, like I said, we have to fix that. I'm just going to take this. And I'm going to add into here, add start of object instantiation. All right. Now I'm going to just comment that out because I already know that those jobs were there. So, okay, the job equals this. All right. So it should have, that should have become the description. That should have become the hours to complete. That should have become the hourly rate. All right. So result equals, and you already saw the result is 35. So none of these are working. So let's see. I don't think that'll work. I mean, no, it won't. I know I ran into a similar problem to this on your pretest. So what I'm going to do, and I normally wouldn't do this, but rather than wasting your time, I'm going to bring up my copy of the pretest. In fact, let's just take, this could be a little deviation, but let's just take a second. This is the pretest. All right. So let me go back to here. You've got to build this. Yes, it's pretty big. All right. So create the GUI application shown below. All right. Add the Muroc validator class and then write your own employee class using the UML description that's on the next page. As always, set the accept button, the cancel button, the start button, start position in the tab order. So these fields that are right, oops, I guess I can't. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, they're all read only. This is basically, this is the program that we wrote for an earlier test. All right, but we're sticking the stuff into a class. All right, use the validator class to add validation to your program. So again, first name can't be empty, last name can't be empty, hours worked can't be empty, must be numeric and must be between 0 and 84. Hourly rate can't be empty, must be numeric and must be a value between 0 and 99. All right, and that's all the stuff that's in here. Okay, so we've got the is present, the is decimal, and the is within range. All right. So it says use these methods in a manner similar to what we used in chapter 12 for the product maintenance app. Of course, you will change the associated error messages to reflect that. This is what that class looked like. I tried to find a free tool to make this and I found it, but after I got done with it, when I saved, it didn't save right, and I don't know if that's because it was a free tool or not. The only reason I'm bringing that up is notice after the get first name and the get last name, there's parens there and parens there. There should be parens here, there should be parens here, and there should be parens there as well. I left them off. And then I said, you must write your own. I said, sorry, I forgot to include the parentheses in the diagram. All right. There is no get gross pay method, as gross pay is calculated by this method right here. Calculate gross pay. So again, I had the same type of problem, so I'm going to fix it in just a second by looking at mine. But it says then create a global list variable. Again, that's very similar to what we just did in here. Every time a new employee is created, all right, make sure the fields are valid and the gross pay method has been calculated. Add the new employee to your employee list. Show a formatted message box showing that this stuff has been added. Now, I realize that's kind of small, but hopefully you can see that first name Jane, it says, last name Doe, hours worked 50, hourly rate 20, and she got overtime, so it's 1,100. So everything worked in there. And in addition, all of these final totals. So if I did another one and I did 40 and 20, it would be 800. That would become a 2. That would become 1,900. That would be 800. That wouldn't change, and this would be 950, etc. I think you get the idea. All right. So it says, please ask if you have any questions. Again, we will go over it in depth on Wednesday. So even though I don't like to, I took the time to create this pretest. Let's see. Now I gotta remember where I put it because I tried to clean up my desktop over the weekend. So let's see. Well, that isn't it. That's probably it. Chapter 12 pretest. That looks like it'd be good. So again, in this particular example, what I did was I did come in and I brought in both that validator class. This is 100% in here. All right, 100%. This is grabbed from Muroc, from the book. I commented out the isInt32 because it wasn't used. We could have left it in there. It sure doesn't hurt anything. I went in and I created an employee class. So there's all the work that's in there, and you had to write your own gross pay method. All right, and I'm trying to quickly look in the actual code so I can see if I can figure out why, because like I said, I had the same error and I'm brain farting right now as to why it isn't working. So if is valid data, is decimal, configure stats. Calculations. Employees.add employee. That's exactly what I just did there. ext. Please feel free to chime in if you see someplace I've screwed up. So, let's see. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's take 10 minutes. I know that it's the way too short a time before the break, but I want to fix this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the actual pretest, but I'm going to change my share. So rather than being the screen, I'm going to just change it so it's just something in here. So I'm going to change it so that it's that. Oops, not that. Just change it so that the pretest comes up. All right, so sorry about this, Grant. Just give me about 10 minutes. It is 1:45, so let's see if I can figure it out by 5:02. Come back then, and then we'll finish this up real quick. Sorry about that.
No problem, sounds good.
All right, I am back. Hopefully you're back too. I had to make a bunch of changes because of the way that I wrote this. So I'm going to show you the changes. All right. But, and we're going to be done in 5 minutes. But that said, I'm going to go back over this particular problem on Wednesday when I do the pretest. So first we'll go over it. I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring in the validator class because there's just way too much code in here that isn't necessary, even though it's only 250 lines. But what I did was I went back, first of all, I went back to the job class and I put in just a getter because it was complaining otherwise. Let's put it that way. All right. So I've got a get description, which returns the description, a get hours to complete, which returns the hours to complete, and a get hourly fee, which returns the hourly fee. This total fee is still the same. All right, so that's what is new in there. And again, I'll show you everything on Thursday, I promise. So I'm going to get, like I said, rip this apart, but where it changed was all right here. So I am still coming in here and I'm instantiating or creating a new job object. The result is going to be that's my final total. And now notice that what I can do is I can call get description to grab that description. I can call get hours to complete to grab the hours to complete. I can call get hourly rate to grab the hourly rate. And the result is just what I did up here. All right. So all of that stuff right now, everything that's in here, okay. Now notice that when I'm adding it afterwards, I'm printing out what's in there. So the description, the hours to complete, the hourly fee, and the total fee. So let me save this and let me run it once. I haven't tried running it, but I'm not going to run the error cases. So we'll say clean out garage. And we'll say that's 5 hours and it's $20 an hour. So 20 times 5 is 100 plus 35. So this should say clean out garage. That should say 5.00. That should say $20.00. And this should have the $135 in it. Well, for some reason I didn't write all of them, but you can see it in here now. Hours to complete 5, hourly fee is 20, total fee is 135. So I've got to get those back here. So let's see, why isn't it printing out those? I don't know. It may not like the fact that I did do some manipulation with these. So let's just see this. All right, so get, yeah, see, it's going to tell me that it's can't put a decimal to a string. Yeah, that makes sense. And since I'm putting them into a string, I should be able to format that to an N2, and I should be able to format that one to a C. But for some reason, nothing was printing out on there. So LBL hours to complete .text. Oh, that's because this has got to be the word current. This is the other one. And this needs to have the word current in there too. So it now should work. Let's try it one more time. File, save all, boom. Come in here, paint, bedroom. 6 hours at $25 an hour, so that should be $185. All right, paint bedroom, $6, 25, 185. Paint bedroom, $6, 25, 185. So it all works. Clear works, everything works. Now, a couple things I'm going to do for Thursday. I'm going to add, or at least attempt to add the setter back in here, because the way I'm writing it works, but it's not the best way of writing it. The other thing I'm going to do is, first, I'm going to add an exit button. It's not a big thing, but I'm going to add it anyway. And second, I'm going to add that validator class in here. So I will show you an updated version of this on Thursday. Okay. All right. Thanks for sticking around. And the rest of the period is lab. Tomorrow is lab all period. I mean, this stuff takes some time to wrap your head around. I will be online tomorrow. All right. So if you got questions, you need a Teams meeting or just an email, that's fine. On Wednesday, we will go over the pretest. I already showed you the pretest. So again, that was this. You will be creating this right here. All right. And you will be using an employee class, and that employee class will have in it this. So a first name, a last name, an hours worked, an hourly rate, and a gross pay. So each employee has this. Here's our constructor, and here are all of our methods. Okay. Any questions, Grant, before we call it a period?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm ready
Okay.
to start.
All right. Hopefully it's starting to make a little bit more sense. Sorry that I kind of screwed up the example here, but I promise you, I will fix it for Wednesday, and we will go over it in some depth and breadth of coverage. Okay. All right.
Good.
See you Wednesday. Thanks.